अस्सलाम वालेकुम। प्रोग्राम एम्बेसी रोड में खुश आमदीद। नाज़रीन, आज हमारे यहाँ मेहमान हैं पाकिस्तान में कनाडा की हाई कमिश्नर हैदर क्रूडन। वो यहाँ 1.5 साल से अपने फ़राइज़ अंजाम दे रही हैं। उनसे हम गुफ्तगू करेंगे पाकिस्तान और कनाडा के बाहमी ताल्लुकात के हवाले से, और इसके अलावा वो हमें बताएंगी कि कनाडा पाकिस्तान के लिए क्या कुछ कर रहा है, इकनॉमिक शोबे में, इक़्तिसादियात के शोबे में, तजारत में, तालीम के शोबे में ख़ास तौर पर, और तमाम शोबों में कनाडा किस तरह पाकिस्तान की मदद कर रहा है। ये हमारे आज के मौज़ूआत हैं, इन पर हम गुफ्तगू करेंगे। Hi Commissioner, thank you very much for joining us in this program.
Well, thank you so much for the invitation. It's a
pleasure. It's a pleasure to have you here. Canada has been a friend and a partner of Pakistan for such a long period of time. Do you have some other plans to enhance this long partnership in the development, economic development of Pakistan?
It is a very long partnership. You know, Canada's been working with Pakistan and present in Pakistan for over 60 years.
Yes.
Our bilateral development cooperation relationship goes back over 60 years. And we have certainly, over the past, worked with the government of Pakistan in various areas that were the priorities of the day, whether it was energy, whether it was infrastructure, whether it was education. Currently, our development program is focusing on women's economic empowerment, which has a very direct link
Yes.
to economic development. But we're also working in the area of governance, particularly women's political participation and electoral reform. And then we're also working in the area of polio eradication. And all of these three sectors impact on the economy and the GDP in different areas or in different ways. So, for example, the work that we're doing on women's economic empowerment, I don't know if you knew that for every year of school that a girl has, it increases her earning potential by 10 to 20%. Globally, if every girl completed primary school, it would actually reduce maternal deaths by over 60%. So, you know, these things all have impacts in various ways. We're working with the government to eradicate polio by 2018. And if polio is not eradicated globally, it's going to cost the world $1 billion a year. But on the more direct economic side, we have a very positive and growing trade relationship. We exceeded $1 billion in bilateral trade last year.
Pakistan-Canada.
Pakistan-Canada. I'm very, very proud of that. And so that's been really positive. Pakistan is now exporting about 400 million, and Canada is exporting about 600 million. And we have Canadian firms that are interested in working with Pakistan in areas like renewable energy. And this is a critical area, and this is also an area, climate change, that my Prime Minister is very engaged in. And he pledged at COP21 over $2 billion in assistance to countries to help them move into carbon-improved economies,
Yes.
green energy, etc.
Coming back to this empowerment of women, the program that Canada is supporting, could you give us some more details as to what this program is actually? How do you empower women? By giving them money or?
No, not directly.
Okay.
And I'm so glad you asked this question, because this is an area that is near and dear to my heart.
Yeah.
We work with different organizations. So, for example, our partners locally right now are organizations like Kashif, which is an amazing local NGO that does a lot of work with women entrepreneurs, really micro entrepreneurs.
Okay.
So they do training in terms of business development, financial literacy, you know, all sorts of things like that. We also work with CARE. They've got a project with women agricultural farmers. And we're also working with the ILO on a completely different area, which is improving the rights of labor, particularly
Yes.
women labor in the formal and informal sectors, so like domestic workers who typically are not very well protected. So it really runs the whole gamut, but it's about encouraging women to be equal participants in the economy.
Yeah.
Because unless women can fully participate in the economy, a country is never going to develop.
High Commissioner, poverty alleviation is also an objective
Yes.
which is globally supported. Are you, Canadian government is supporting Pakistan to alleviate poverty among women, particularly in Pakistan?
Absolutely. I mean, a few years ago, there was a bill that was passed, and the object of all of our development assistance is poverty reduction, and we see that as critical in underlying anything that we do. So, there's a very direct correlation between the work that we're doing on women's economic empowerment, because the women that we're mostly dealing with are the women that are very, very vulnerable. So these are women that are, they're moving into micro-entrepreneurs. But in terms of, the other areas of our programming, we do see a very direct relationship between poverty reduction and good governance, obviously. So this is why we're also trying to improve women's political participation, and we're working specifically in the area of electoral reform.
The participation of women in governance, are you satisfied with that level of women participation in the assemblies, elected representation, or for that matter, the women are represented in the government? There are women in the cabinet of federal cabinet, national, provincial cabinets.
Well, I think it's always a difficult area, and up until recently, I can't say that Canada has been,
too good in it,
stellar in it either. It can be difficult for women to enter public life because there are so many other constraints. But the reserve seats that have been put in place, I think that's definitely a good starting point. I've met with a number of women parliamentarians, and they are, very keen. I think there's more work that can be done in terms of women caucuses and, trying to harness the collective energy of women in Parliament, both at the federal level and at the provincial level. But, it wasn't until our recent Prime Minister came to power that we have now got, for the first time in our history, a cabinet that's 50% women. So, this is a huge step forward for Canada as well.
It's a great step forward. High Commissioner, you mentioned the women's participation in electoral process. There are areas in Pakistan where women are debarred taking part in election, and they can't cast their votes. Are you helping are you helping the women to cast their votes, and there should be no taboo for them to go to the polls?
Absolutely, there should be no taboo for them. Now, in terms of the upcoming federal elections, it's certainly, I think, one of the areas that we hope to work with, but that program hasn't yet been established. But generally, we engage, I think, very heavily with the government and with the international community and with all of the other stakeholders. I think women being barred from political participation is, frankly, it's not right. Women have a voice.
It's a violation of the Constitution of Pakistan.
It's a violation of your Constitution.
Yes.
And every citizen of Pakistan has the right to vote, or should have the right to vote. That should not be withheld from anybody. We are all, well, I'm not an equal citizen of Pakistan, I'm an equal citizen of Canada, but all citizens have the right to express their opinions at the polls.
Are you helping the Election Commission of Pakistan, for instance, to convince women and to make it easier for the women of Pakistan to go to the polling stations and cast their votes?
As I said, our program for the next set of elections isn't defined yet, but certainly in the last set of elections, we worked very closely with the Election Commission, and I do hope we'll be able to do that in the future.
You mentioned the partnership of Pakistan and Canada in the field of energy.
Yes.
And I know that Canada is a country which helped Pakistan set up nuclear power plant, Canop, in Karachi. And since then, this partnership has been there. Are you thinking to help Pakistan to overcome the energy crisis that this nation is facing?
Well, Pakistan is certainly facing an energy crisis. And as I said, our Prime Minister is very committed to climate change. And as part of that, we're investing very highly in renewable energies. Clean energy.
Yes.
So that's solar, that's wind, and that's hydro. And we do have Canadian companies that are interested in potentially investing in Pakistan. So I think that would be very positive if it happens, and we're very excited about those opportunities, but it's early stages yet, and I can't announce anything. So inshallah, watch this space, and we'll be able to point directly to what we're going to be able to do. But in terms of the energy mix in Pakistan, I think it's very important to have, a mix of energy options.
But Pakistan has a huge potential to produce energy from water,
Yes.
hydropower.
Yeah.
And Canada has an experience in that field. So will Canada help Pakistan to produce more hydropower in Pakistan, which is cheaper, which is, I think, cleaner? And do you contemplate or think of helping Pakistan on that count?
Well, I mean, the large infrastructure projects are generally done through the Asian Development Bank or through the World Bank.
World Bank, yes.
Yeah. So Canadian companies will be bidding on any projects that come up, or could be bidding on any projects that come up. I only know of one Canadian company that's interested in a foreign direct investment at this point in time. But I did travel up north, and I saw the potential with the glacier and the lakes the rivers up north. There's huge potential for hydropower in Pakistan, and it's not just the big projects, it's the smaller projects that could generate, I think, enormous amounts of energy.
Pakistan is now planning to start the Basha Dam up in north. You must have been to that place.
Not that place,
okay.
no. I've been to Gilgit
but
and
this is a very
Trikala.
big project. I mean, Pakistan hopes to produce almost 10,000 megawatt of electricity through this dam, Basha Dam. Can Canada come out with help to build this dam?
We haven't been asked, so I can't comment on that.
Right. Ambassador, the trade, you mentioned $1 billion
Yes.
trade between the two countries. What is the potential to expand this trade further between Canada and Pakistan?
I think there's enormous potential. I mean, that trade number that I just gave you that I'm very, very proud of, I mean, we almost doubled from previous years. So it's been a real, a real
That is one of
growth.
your achievements.
I would love to take personal credit for that, but I have to say that was my team. But there's huge opportunities in a whole variety of sectors. I mean, Canada has enormous expertise, as you've noted, in the energy sector, but we also have expertise in the banking sector, the insurance sector. Most of our our trade exports right now are agricultural products, so canola, seed, pulses, lentils, that kind of thing. But we can definitely expand that. IT is another area where we've got a lot of expertise. So it really depends on the opportunities in the market. Now, Pakistan obviously has a lot of potential to grow also in exporting your agriculture
materials
products.
too, yes.
And primarily exporting textiles to Canada.
Yes.
So I think there's a lot of areas for that relationship to grow.
Yes, thank you, Mr. High Commissioner. We'll take a short break and we'll come back. नाज़रीन, एक मुख्तसर ब्रेक लेंगे. ब्रेक से वापसी के बाद हम फिर अपनी गुफ्तगू का ये सिलसिला जारी रखेंगे पाकिस्तान में कनाडा के हाई कमिश्नर से और उनसे पूछेंगे कि उनके जहन में क्या खुसूसी प्लान या मंसूबा है दो और पाकिस्तान में ताल्लुकात किस तरह मजबूत और मुस्तहकम हो रहे हैं और वो बता रही हैं कि क्या क्या हम कर सकते हैं दोनों ममालिक के ताल्लुकात को बेहतर बनाने के लिए. High Commissioner, do you have a specific plan? I mean, as High Commissioner of Canada and Pakistan, you have spent almost a year and a half.
I do.
So you must have studied the needs, economic needs, social needs of this country. So do you have something specific in your mind?
Well, that's a very broad question. Yes, I've been here for almost a year and a half. I can't believe how fast the time has gone. Every year we go through a strategic planning process, and actually I've almost finished it for the next year, and I've got to write. So my focus is really on the multifaceted relationship that Canada has with Pakistan. And I've talked a little bit about the development cooperation relationship, which is very robust. I didn't mention, however, that we have just approved 2 new projects for polio eradication worth $40 million.
Pakistan.
For Pakistan specifically, worth $40 million. So our polio eradication support right now is worth $60 million. Over the last decade, we have provided over $300 million in humanitarian and reconstruction assistance, particularly to the earthquake and from
Areas in Azad Kashmir and KPK.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So in terms of my priorities moving forward, I obviously want to continue to build on the development cooperation relationship. My priorities in terms of areas that I am specifically interested in are very much along the lines of Canadian values. So that is human rights generally, women's rights specifically. That's an area that's very near and dear to my heart. Religious freedom, pluralism, good governance. So those are the policy areas that I follow very closely. We also have a very, it's a small, but it's important, military-to-military relationship. I have a defense attaché that's here. We have a very large immigration program. I mean, the number of visa applications that the immigration section processes is unreal. It's huge.
Yes.
We have, a consular program. There's a number of Canadian-Pakistan dual nationals, Canadian Pakistanis that reside in Pakistan. We also have a relationship, obviously, on the security side, not just the military, but with the police. I have a RCMP, which is our Royal Canadian Mounted Police officer, and he is working with UNODC. We provide support to UNODC specifically to address drug smuggling and provide capacity building to some of the police that are dealing with this issue. So it's, as I said, really capitalized today. And
You mentioned between the police people of 2 countries, Pakistan faces a lot of security problems.
Yes.
And the other countries, Western countries, including the United States, UK, they are helping Pakistan's police and security apparatus to do better, to build their capacity. So is Canada also doing that or thinking to do that?
Well, we've been doing it through UNODC. We were actually, I think, the largest donor to their 5-year program that just ended this year and next year. So I'm not quite sure what the future of that program will be going forward, but it's an area that we are obviously very interested in because security, regional security, obviously impacts on countries around the world. And I don't know if you know, but I served before coming to Pakistan as Canada's High Commissioner in Bangladesh. So I was there for 3.5 years.
Oh.
So that's been interesting because
It has been a part of Pakistan.
it
Bangladesh.
was. And then before that, I served in Afghanistan for 2 years. So I have some knowledge of sort of the
Of this
regional
region.
dynamics and how important security is, and that includes things like border management, et cetera. So it's a gargantuan task, really.
Commissioner, you mentioned your stay in Afghanistan particularly, and Afghanistan is suffering from this scourge of terrorism and extremism and radicalization. And this whole region seems to be in the grip of this menace of terrorism and extremism. How to overcome this? I mean, can education help us out? Or you think that a military solution is the only solution to this problem?
I think it's a very complicated question. Any religion has more fundamental elements in it. I think education is obviously very important because if people are educated, particularly if they're educated in a system that teaches them how to critically analyze, then you start to ask, more questions, and you can challenge things that you hear and read. But that's just part of it. I mean, the other thing that you really need to do is provide economic opportunities. And frankly, this is an area that I worry about for Pakistan because, right now, Pakistan has a population of about 200 million people.
Yes.
There hasn't been a census, so we don't know exactly. But the estimates are that by 2050, you're going to have 400 million people. Pakistan is struggling to provide education and economic opportunities for its youth now. It's one of the youngest nations in the world. By 2050, if those predictions come to pass, it's going to be far more, I would say, challenging and problematic to provide educational and economic opportunities to an even larger...
Huge mass of young people.
Exactly.
But High Commissioner, the people of Pakistan, the youngsters, they go to Canada for education.
They do. Yes.
And you think that the Canadian government or the Canadian society is receptive to foreign students, especially Pakistanis?
Oh, absolutely. Canada prides itself on being a country of immigrants. I mean, my grandmother and grandfather came over from Scotland. I think right now Pakistan is the 6th largest source country of immigrants to Canada. Yes. We have immigrants from all over the world. I mean, our diaspora, I mean, this is why Canada belongs to so many different organizations, whether it's the Commonwealth, the Francophonie, and, all of these different organizations, because we are trying to respond to the needs of our citizens. And, I think my Prime Minister has said it very well. Canada promotes values of tolerism and pluralism. And Canada has succeeded because of our diversity, not in spite of our diversity. And so part of that is helping to have immigrants settle and become
part of that society.
Part of that society, part of the fabric of society, while still respecting, their cultural heritage, their religious affiliations, any other number of facets of who they are. So it's not assimilation. It's really a multicultural society. Yeah, and
So,
it's quite amazing.
Yeah, but other Pakistanis who are working, there's a big community of Pakistani workers work in Canada. You think they are contributing positively to the society in general, or they are creating problems?
As far as I know, they're contributing very well. I mean, right now we have 2 MPs of Pakistani descent. We have 1 senator of Pakistani descent, members of the cricket team, which our cricket team has a ways to go, but we've got members of the cricket team that are of Pakistani descent, so thank you very much. You're helping us become better. Roxana Khan, we just brought her over. She's a children's author.
Yes.
She came over on a Canada Council grant. She was fantastic. She's writing all of these stories for children and helping children in Canada understand, what it's like to grow up someplace else. Charmaine Ombay Chinoy.
She produces wonderful films.
Wonderful films.
And has won accolades.
Yes, and I had the privilege of showing her recent film, the one that just won the Academy Award, Girl in the River, talking about honor killings. It's incredibly powerful. So all of these Canadians in different walks of life, and of course we've got so many Pakistani Canadians that are engaged in business opportunities, that Pakistani students that are going to study in Canada, and we promote Canada as an education destination.
Yes.
So,
yeah, but High Commissioner, there has been a constant struggle to basically bridge the gap between the thinking of the Western societies, Western people, and those of the Islamic countries. But it seems that that divergence still exists, and at times one feels that it is widening. The incident of terrorism that took place in Paris and then in Belgium and elsewhere, do you think that they indicate that there is a need to promote better understanding of Islam in those countries?
I think there's a need, quite frankly, to have a debate within Islam about what Islam means or what it means to be a Muslim. I'm not a Muslim, so I can't really comment on that. Obviously, I grew up in the Christian tradition,
Yes.
although, I'm very secular. But there was a debate in the Christian religion a couple of hundred years ago about what that meant and the relationship between church and state. And so, our countries have gone through various periods of engaging the church in different ways. I think, the form of Islam that is leading to these kinds of attacks has nothing to do with what Islam really means. So if people are doing this in the name of Islam, it is the Muslims themselves that need to have this conversation about what does it mean and why is this happening, and why is there a resurgence of more fundamentalist or conservative elements at the very extreme end. Now, you've got that in any religion. I mean, you've got it in Christianity, which
extremists are there everywhere.
Exactly.
There was a book written by Mr. Huntington, Samuel Huntington, The Clash of Civilization. Do you believe that there is going to be, or there is a clash between the West and the East, or between the West and the Islamic world? This is a clash of ideas and cultural values and religious values.
I think you have to ask whose religion you're talking about, because I haven't read the book, so I'm not really in a position to comment on it. But, from a very generalized perspective, I don't think the West is clashing with Islam as how the more moderate practitioners of Islam see Islam. I think what the West is concerned about are these far more radicalized elements that say, if I disagree with you, I'm going to kill you. That's not part of any religion, or it shouldn't be.
Yes.
There has to be a space for constructive disagreement. And there has to be a space to respect other people's beliefs. Just because I don't believe in...
There has to be an accommodation for all kinds of ideologies and tolerance.
Exactly.
Great. Ambassador, your new Prime Minister,
Yes.
young, dynamic Prime Minister, he has taken a few steps, to actually build harmony of thoughts among various religious groups, and he's taking more steps. So how do you look at these steps?
Well, I think our Prime Minister, he's very popular. You'll have to tell me why he's so popular, but did you know, I just learned this the other day, he's now had 2 million followers on Facebook, or likes on Facebook.
Yes.
The 7th city that likes him the most is Karachi.
Great.
So somebody's going to have to tell me why he's so popular in Pakistan.
Yes.
But certainly he is engaging on a number of different issues. His statements after, the Paris bombings and other attacks, I think have really highlighted, again, the Canadian values of tolerance and pluralism, and not confusing the attackers with the religion that they are using in vain, to be quite frank. He's also engaging, as I said, on climate change. He's got a lot of other issues that he's dealing with domestically, like infrastructure. So he's got a lot on his plate, but he certainly is got people's attention, and I think in a very positive way for Canada, obviously.
Thank you, Commissioner. We'll take another short break and then we'll come back. नाज़रीन, एक मुख्तसर ब्रेक लेते हैं. ब्रेक से वापसी के बाद हम फिर अपना ये प्रोग्राम दोबारा इसका आगाज़ करेंगे और मज़ीद गुफ्तगू करेंगे पाकिस्तान में कनाडा के हाई कमिश्नर से, पाकिस्तान और कनाडा के ताल्लुकात को, पाकिस्तान में कनाडा के हाई कमिश्नर से. Do you have, High Commissioner, a specific agenda for Pakistan as long as you are here as High Commissioner? you want to contribute something which should be remembered in the days to come, in the months and years to come?
I guess if I would want it to be remembered for anything, I think it would be the engagement and support I'm providing for women's rights generally. I think this is a core issue. If women are not able to be full and productive members of a society, if they don't have their political rights, if they don't have access to education, if they're not protected under the law, like domestic violence, honor attacks, honor killings, asset attacks, then they can't contribute to the country, right? They can't fully express their potential. So anything that I can do in that area and any results that I might have, that would be the one thing I want to be remembered for.
Okay. And in this area, which you have just mentioned, you have some specific plans, I mean, to eradicate domestic violence from Pakistan, torture to which the women are subjected in this country, domestic violence, and the acid attacks, etc. Are you supporting financially a specific project on this?
What we have done in the past is we have a small fund for local initiatives, and this is where a lot of the funding has come from. But in the past, we have also supported very much women's empowerment in a number of different areas. What I've been doing mostly has been on the advocacy side and engaging with politicians and government. I would say on the honor killings, we're very happy about the leadership role that Prime Minister Sharif is exerting, and his statement that there is no honor in honor killings. I'm following with great interest the legislation that is supposed to be coming forward. We followed with also great interest the legislation that Punjab recently passed.
Punjab Assembly has passed
yes.
a bill. Yes.
And so has Sindh. But the debate that has then started between some of the religious leaders.
Some religious groups have rejected it, and they have their own reservations about it.
Exactly. And so trying to figure out how we can positively engage. I'm very conscious that while I'm a woman, I'm also a white woman. And sometimes, there's that whole notion of the West exporting values. And so this really does have to come from Pakistani women themselves. But anything that I can do personally to assist, that's what I'm
A lot of NGOs are working for the empowerment of women. They're local NGOs,
Yes.
so you are in partnership with them.
We have been in the past. As I said, we've got this local fund that runs every year, and then NGOs can apply. Another area of focus in the past has been early marriage, and we did have some funding for that. So it really depends where the opportunities for engagement are. And again, we don't want to be, I think these kinds of initiatives have to be indigenous. They have to come from local partners,
Yes.
and then we have to determine the best way to work with them.
Healthcare is very important, and the women folk in Pakistan particularly
Yes.
at a very great disadvantage because they are not extended the health facilities which they require. So any contribution that you and the Canadian government is making to this?
We are contributing, I would say, broadly to the healthcare system, but it's specifically through the polio eradication initiatives.
Polio, yeah.
But what we're hoping is the interventions that we have done to strengthen the surveillance, the community mobilization, the training of local healthcare workers to eradicate polio. Once polio is eradicated, that can be transferred to broader immunization generally and to broader healthcare initiatives. So the work that's been done to, track where the health workers go and the immunizations that have been given, that will be transferable to a whole host of other diseases. The work that we've done to strengthen the surveillance system with the WHO, that can be transferred to any other emerging or ongoing disease. So I think overall that's really going to help improve the healthcare system. So,
Mother-child care, I mean, there are a lot of mothers in Pakistan who die
I know.
because of this problem, you know. And do you have something to offer to these women, these people?
We've been doing some work through our partnership program, so it's not through our bilateral program, which is probably very archaic to viewers out there, so I apologize for that. But yes, MNCH, maternal and child health, was a priority of our former government, our former Prime Minister in particular, and it's certainly a priority of our current government. They've stressed that. And that includes all aspects of it. But one of the things I want to stress in terms of maternal deaths and infant deaths is if girls marry young, you know, between 16 and 18 or 14 and 18 or anywhere under 18, you've got a much higher rate of maternal deaths and infant deaths. So one of the really important things to do is to make sure that girls marry after they've completed high school, at a minimum, preferably after they've completed tertiary education, whether that's universities or colleges, because automatically then those rates will go down. Because when a young girl gets pregnant, her body just isn't ready to cope with it.
Yes.
And so the risks go up.
High Commissioner, Canada has been open to, as you said, immigrants from all over the world. But recently you have opened your doors to Syrian refugees.
Yes, we have.
Probably 20,000?
30,000 now, almost.
30?
Almost,
Okay.
yeah.
So will this policy continue? Because the European countries are now reluctant to have more refugees from that region, from that conflict-ridden region.
Yes, our government has pledged to continue to open our doors to refugees. And so we've increased the number of refugees that we will be taking in, and the focus has been very much on Syrian refugees. And the response of the communities in Canada has been tremendous. I will say it was an awful lot of work because the government pledged to have, oh dear, what was it? I think it was 20,000 by the end of 2015. I mean, that's a lot of work for our immigration department. So, but that's been a core campaign commitment, and it's been done now, but we'll be increasing that over the next few years. We also want to make sure that families can reunite. And, you know, we have always taken refugees from around the world, from the UNHCR. And so I think that's going to continue.
Canada can help. I think Canada can also help Pakistan in the field of agriculture. It's a very important field. Pakistan is primarily an agrarian economy.
Society, yeah.
So what could be done to increase cooperation between Canada and Pakistan in the field of agriculture?
Well, that's a really interesting question. And I think, you know, what we can share is a lot of our lessons in terms of how you move from sort of small-scale farming to larger-scale farming, the whole value chain. That's incredibly important because, you know, as I've traveled through Pakistan, there's a lot of wastage.
Water?
No, wastage of fruits and vegetables.
Okay.
Because you don't have the post-harvest technologies, you don't have the storage facilities, you don't have the facilities to turn them into higher value products, whether it's jams, dried fruits or vegetables. You know, there's a whole host of things that can be done, and I think we can certainly share some of our experiences in increasing that value chain. I think also it's really important for regional trade and in terms of Pakistan's economy, because if you can increase trade in the region, and this is one of the few regions where regional trade is very difficult, then that's going to, I think, impact positively on not just Pakistan's economy, but also regional economies.
On this question of agriculture sector cooperation, Pakistan as you said, that we need to change we need to have more modern technologies to improve the farming in Pakistan and agriculture in Pakistan. Is Canada thinking to do that for Pakistan?
Well, right now our development program focuses on those three areas that I've outlined. But I think under climate change, there will be possibly opportunities to explore how to look at how Pakistan combats climate change and the attendant impacts on agriculture, because Pakistan is now one of the most affected countries.
I think 13 worst affected countries.
Exactly. And that's going to impact on your agricultural production. And so it's going to be necessary to engage in research and innovation. And certainly IDRC, which is our International Research Development Council, this is an area that they are focusing on in Pakistan. So it's part of the government of Canada as well. So it is an area that we're already engaging on. And then through the funding that's been announced by our Prime Minister, there could be opportunities for Pakistan to benefit from that.
Thank you, High Commissioner, for this informing and very enlightening conversation. नाज़रीन, आपने आज के इस प्रोग्राम में पाकिस्तान में कनाडा की हाई कमिश्नर हैदर क्रूडन की गुफ्तगू कि पाकिस्तान और कनाडा के दरमियान ताल्लुकात ताउन पर मबनी हैं, तालीम के शोबे में और तवानाई के शोबे में और मुख्तलिफ शोबों में पाकिस्तान और कनाडा के ताल्लुकात ताउन और एक दूसरे का हाथ बटाने के कॉन्सेप्ट या तस्वर पर मबनी है। उन्होंने बताया कि पाकिस्तान और कनाडा की जो तजारत है वो $1 अरब तक हो चुकी है और इसमें मज़ीद तोसी की गुंजाइश है। उन्होंने वो तमाम मंसूबे भी बयान किए जिनमें पाकिस्तान को कनाडा मदद कर रहा है ख़वातीन को बाख्तियार बनने के लिए, उनके तालीम के लिए, उनकी सेहत के लिए, और उन्होंने अपना मज़ीद जो प्लान्स हैं, जो मज़ीद मंसूबे हैं पाकिस्तान को मदद देने के, उनके ऊपर बात की है। इसी के साथ ये प्रोग्राम ख़त्म होता है। जावेद सिद्दीक को इजाज़त दीजिए। खुदा हाफिज़। Thank you, High Commissioner. It's a pleasure to talk to you.
Thank you very much.